mute. Feel free to come off of mute when we get to some of the Q&A breaks. But Father Jim, if you can give us an opening prayer tonight and
Thank
your
you, Steve.
blessings.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Let us pray to the Lord. Lord, have mercy. Heavenly King, the comforter, the Spirit of truth, present in all places and filling all things, treasure your blessings and giver of life, come and abide in us. Cleanse us from all impurity and save our souls, O gracious one. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Jim. And thank you, as always, for staying up late on a Monday night after a very busy weekend, given the feast day, and I'm sure with many services. I know we have Bill Marianis from the East Coast, and others may have joined from the East Coast. Feel free, actually, if you have joined from outside the metropolis, we'd love to welcome you in the chat. Feel free to tell us where you're from, if it's outside of the metropolis of San Francisco. I think otherwise, those of us, I see a lot of familiar faces, which is really great to see tonight. And we want to get into these topics, but as always, we want to go beyond just the presentation. And tonight we have the pleasure of having both Steve Tibbs and Dimi Sakalaris providing the content around strategic planning as well as leadership development. And again, really what we want to do is provide resources and some information, and then really inspire discussion, time permitting. So I'm going to do my best for us to kind of keep to a timetable that gives everyone the opportunity also to get some questions in there. We'll take some breaks for Q&A, but also feel free to use the chat to pose a question, and that gives me a sense of how big of a queue we have and how much I have to push Steve or Dimi to try to get through the content quickly. But with that, real quick, Father Stefan, you joined early. Welcome. It's great to have you here from Seattle. And thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, well, Steve, if you want to kick things off as the OPL leader and our topics tonight.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And nice to see so many familiar faces. A little hoarse tonight, but I think we can get through it with some lozenges. Absolutely pleasure. Let me tell you a little bit about Orthodox Parish leadership. As you have seen from the sponsor of this series, they're now sponsored by the Ministry of the Orthodox Parish Leadership of the Metropolis of San Francisco. And this is something that's been kind of formed over quite a few years, but this year we've expanded the team. So there are many members of OPL on this call, and one of those is Dimi. Dimi's the Parish Council President from St. Anthony in Reno, and has been actively working on strategic plans with me at a variety of parishes. And she's anchoring the offering in strategic planning for the OPL. We also have additional offerings in the areas of stewardship, generosity, financial health, ministry effectiveness. St. Nicholas may be interested to see what we're coming up with there. As a matter of fact, I think, Steve, that's our next topic. So maybe we can connect Peter with them. Capital campaigns, welcome ministries, planned giving, estate giving. And so we have a variety of areas that we now have more resources to support more parishes, and that's what we're doing right now. So tonight we'd like to do two things, and let me go ahead and show a slide here. So we're covering two topics. Both of these topics we could spend an entire weekend talking about. So we will be as concise as possible. Obviously, this is a kind of a survey course, so we're building awareness and hopefully can generate more questions after the session or in subsequent days. Dimi will be talking about the majority of the strategic planning presentation, and then I will be touching on parish leadership development. When we talk about leadership development or leaders and plans, whether strategic planning or whatever the case in parish leadership, it's important to understand that there's an intersection between those two. And in working with parishes, and I've had the opportunity to do that a fair amount in the metropolis of San Francisco and with other areas as well. We find that leadership without a plan is basically a lot of well-intended people going off in a number of directions. And in some cases, worst case, you create chaos. Or if you have a plan with no leadership, then you have a very beautiful strategic planning book sitting on the shelf, and you hear things from parishes that say, well, that was nice, but we're not going to do that again because it didn't create any change. So if you do either of those in isolation, you're going to have parish adrift. You're going to have a situation where you're not really fully receiving the benefit of the efforts. So again, tonight we're going to be talking about the strategic planning process. We're going to share approaches that have worked here, kind of the methodology for OPL, and certainly answer any questions that you might have. Leadership, that is an entirely separate topic. The focus of tonight is on leadership development, because that seems to be a pretty hot topic in our parishes as well, addressing what I'll call a pain point in our parishes, which is, where are the next generation of leaders? Where's the emerging leaders coming from? How do we develop and prepare them? We have a parish council that's getting tired. We have a festival committee president that is getting tired, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to address that. But let me talk about the planning element first. In all the plans that we do, we always rely on this quote from Jeremiah: "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." And this is in every one of our plans, and it's so vital that the entire strategic planning process is wrapped with prayer and asking for the Holy Spirit to guide our efforts and give us the discernment to make the right decisions. Everything I'm going to be talking about tonight, and Dimi will be sharing this evening as well on the strategic planning, is in the Parish Strategic Planning Guidebook. This guidebook was created a few years back for the metropolis of San Francisco. It's been used quite a bit, both within our metropolis and outside. And there are copies that can be sent to you. We're just finalizing our website for OPL, and it'll be there where you can download it. But in the interim, should anyone like a copy, we can send you an electronic copy very, very easily. And I think there's a few printed copies here and there, but the content, majority of the content that we're going to share on strategic planning is in this book. Also, we have a variety of strategic plans that have been done for parishes in our metropolis, and those, because of the approval from the Prestamino and the parish council and the strategic planning teams, they are willing to share their plans with other parishes as well. So those are available. This is just a sampling of the plans and the plan books that are out there. So let's talk about strategic planning. I think we all know what the definition of strategic planning is, right? It's to identify where we are today, identify where we need to be, and a plan on how to get there. But point number one is often overlooked. It's a tremendous opportunity to recalibrate and get back to the why statement of the parish. And I mentioned plan drift in an earlier slide. This is a great opportunity to kind of just recalibrate and say, what is the most fundamental reason this parish is here? Why are we all here? Why are all of our ministries here? Why is the parish council operating? What is the Floptohos's role? So if we can recalibrate that as a very first step in the strategic planning process, we've come a long way. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm just thankful that I'm able to experience in all these different parishes. So recalibrating on the why and this movement of visioning where we need to be. And then more importantly, or most importantly, how are we going to get there? A plan is a plan, that's wonderful, but we got to have a plan to get there. Also, there's elements that the plans are systematic. A strategic planning process is a systematic review of the parish and the ministries. It's respectful. Parishes should never be there to disrespect or shame anyone. So it's not a performance evaluation. They're open, they're inclusive, they're transparent. There's no hidden secrets. It's not 6 people getting in a room for a weekend, figuring out a plan and then sneaking it into the parish. That's absolutely not the case. So it's an opportunity for the entire parish to come together in that regard. There's a great deal of value that we've seen coming out of these. And if you look at the value, there's transactional and transformational. The transactional are the numbers, right? What are the tangible things that a strategic plan does? I've just taken a couple excerpts here that I thought were uh, beneficial to take a look at. Father Dean Koldukas, we are experiencing an increase in church attendance, parishioners participating in ministry, and growth in stewardship. That was after the completion of the strategic plan. But if you look at the process of developing a plan, we're actually seeing positive change occurring as the plan is being developed. Billy Anastopoulos, Parish Council President in Tucson, the process culminated in the approval of a defined plan embraced by our parish in unity, which is very important, and to successfully relocate and rebuild our church campus. And then Father Paul Parish shared that upon the implementation of the plan at Holy Trinity in Portland, we're seeing results in parish growth, ministry growth, and are embarking on a plan for overall site development. The interesting thing about that is their kind of official window of completing all the plan was earlier this year. And I got an email from an individual that's looking at the site development process. And they have these very beautiful plans on how they're going to expand the footprint of the church properties. And it was just wonderful to see. But there's also the transformational elements. Transformational elements really have to do with the culture of the parish. It's those values, those beliefs, those behaviors that actually shape the parish. And that's another benefit of working on a strategic plan as you're going through the process that Dean is going to share in just a minute. It's the opportunity to create greater unity in the parish, greater consensus for very key decisions. It puts the entire parish on a common journey. There's accountability and transparency in the plan. There's going to be dates and implementation measures, and the parish is going to hold itself accountable for that. There's going to be a cultural redefinition. They're going to be looking at the behaviors, again, that bind the parish and sometimes question those and sometimes affirm those. And then it's this reawakening of the why, bringing it to the surface where maybe it's been forgotten for a while. So there are definitely these transformational elements that are going to be shaping the parish over the years to come. There are types of plans. There are strategic plans. A typical window on a strategic plan is going to be looking at a 3 to 4 year window. Some go out 5 years. I typically don't recommend that unless you're in a building program, because building programs can technically go out 20 years. But from a plan design perspective, you're really looking into that 3 to 4 year window because you want to be able to implement things. There's also revitalization plans. Tucson was a little bit closer to a revitalization plan, a little shorter window, more narrow focused. That's about an 18-month window, sometimes stretching to 24 months. But it's really focused in on those 2 to 3 really key elements that really need to be done. Tucson's case, it was, do we stay or do we move? Capital campaigns. I put this here because they're not really affiliated with a strategic plan, but they can be confusing. I got a call from a priest one time, said, I want to do a strategic plan. And we talked through it, asked some of the questions I'm going to show you in just a minute. And he said, well, we want to resurface the parking lot, we want to paint the building, and we need a roof repaired. I said, well, it's not a strategic plan, that's really a capital campaign. And he goes, yes, but we need to be strategic in the way that we raise the money. So we kind of changed strategic plan from a noun to a verb, but we averted a lot of unnecessary work by having that discovery process. So yes, there are capital campaigns that sometimes are derivatives from a strategic plan, but they don't replace a strategic plan. And of course, then we have the annual parish plan that should be the annual activity that ties into the 3 year window, that a 3 or 4 year window that a strategic plan, that framework provides, and allows calibration to show progress. So there's all these plans kind of working together. Again, we're going to focus on strategic plan tonight. Before the process even begins, typically I'll get a call, or Demi will get a call from a parish council member, could be a parish council president, occasionally a priest, inquiring of what's involved. We'll have these sort of conversations. We'll take them through the materials that you'll see tonight. But early on, we'll try to identify, even before the teams are formed, what's the rationale? Why do you want to do this? Hence my clarification on the capital campaign versus the strategic plan. Is there a crisis situation? Are you responding to early indications, or are you a late adopter? Is your parish plateaued, or is your parish in decline? Or is your parish green and growing and you just want to continue to keep it that way? Is the parish ready to change? Many times a strategic plan is synonymous in the minds of people of change. and some people don't like to change sometimes. So we talk about that. And what's the history of planning? Have they had a strategic plan that they just put on the shelf in the past? What emotion does it elicit when the term strategic plan is identified in the parish? Also, what's the key goal? If you look at a strategic plan, as I just identified, it's the process of developing the plan. Many times, the process of developing the plan is actually far more important than the actual booklet that's created at the end of this. And so we talk about the importance of participation, of process, and how we get to the end result. And then finally, change the status quo. How resistant is the parish to change? Does the parish change on a regular basis? So these are things that even before we start to go through the approach that Demi is going to show you, we would have spoken about and clarified even before the process. But we say, you know what? We got through this. We know we want a strategic plan. Now what do we do? So what I'd like to do now is let me turn it over to Demi, and she's going to take you through the approach and the elements of the strategic planning process. And with that, I'll close here.
Thanks, Steve.
And Demi, you can take over the slides.
And if I can, we actually have a couple questions that came in through the chat, and to maybe take a moment if there was anything, Steve, that was
Sure.
said, if there's any the questions folks had, but we had two come right out of the gate, so wanted to be sure we at least addressed them here. And as far as those who ask for copies, we'll capture your emails and send you copies of the guide, as well as we'll post it on the website. So Jeff Lee had mentioned or said, I've heard the term over the years in business as well as in parish life, assuming that's really strategic planning, that organizations can have lots of managers, or I've heard the saying of an organization having lots of managers but not many leaders. Does that ring true to you? Have you run into that as you assist parishes complete their self-evaluation? So true leadership versus the army of managers or others with dynamic.
We're gonna touch on that a little bit when I talk about leadership development, because we're going to talk about the difference between a leader and a manager. The reality of what I've seen is that we have seen a very good mix of leadership and management. Management to track the implementations, to put together a very focused implementation plan and hold yourself accountable and complete the task. Those are managerial in nature. The visioning, the leadership that's associated with, or the visioning which is associated with leader, and Demi's going to talk about vision casting in just a little bit, is really kind of the front end of where we need to be. And once we identify that, and then we'll put together a plan, and we'll get a little ahead. Demi will talk through all that. But I see it actually works very well. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And then Nick, Nick, it took me a while and then it clicked. Okay, now I know why Nick's asking this question. So Nick asks a somewhat specific question. So anyone on the meeting in a retirement parish where parishioners have been there, done that at previous parishes? And Nick is at St. George in Palm Desert, and he has, as Father Ted does, a ebbing and flowing parish size depending on the season and the time of year. When the snowbirds join us back here in Southern California for the good weather. But Nick, I don't know if we wanted to either address it or maybe just in the chat if others have that experience. So I don't know if Reno, I know we've had a lot of Californians run out to the Nevada border. So I don't know if Reno's seeing some of that or not.
We do, right? I think we are getting transplants from other parts of the country in Reno, and I think in that we do see people come with ideas of what they've done with their parish, right? I think it's been helpful in some regards, right? Here's an idea that we can digest. It's about I think assessing it for how it fits in with our parish, though, right? And that takes, I think, some finesse and technique. I think all ideas are welcome, but recognizing that every parish has its own personality and culture, and an idea or something working at one parish may or may not always work at another parish. But but taking value in the idea and going from there with it. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Excellent. And I don't know if you're still on. I forgot. I wanted to particularly welcome Metropolitan Terrasios, who's joined us tonight also as a Zoom user. But I'm not sure, maybe he stepped away. He was on screen for a while, but again, welcome, Your Eminence, and hopefully we'll see you back on screen when convenient. Father Ted, raised hand. So-
I was just going to add that one of the issues of a snowbird parish that I think I can say is that planning is a seasonal issue in itself, because what happens in a parish like ours is that we can do a lot of planning from October till May, but then in May there's that lull in summertime when people go to their summer homes or their trips, their vacations, and getting back in the fall, in September or October, we have to pick up the plan where we left off, and that helps change the momentum. And that's been a problem for us at this point, I would say. Keeping a momentum is a challenge in that regard. So anyway, I don't know if Demi wants to comment on that, but that's been a little bit of my experience here. Anyway.
I think a little bit different in Reno, right? I don't think we definitely have more people moving into our community from other areas, but I don't think we have that ebb and flow like you do of people coming in and out within the year from a retirement perspective. So I think we're a little different in that regard.
Great. Well, we'll park that because I think Nick had another kind of interesting idea there, which is the been there, done that, right? People new to a community, we have some communities that have multi-generational and, it's sort of everything's institutionalized versus communities that may have, folks coming in because of permanent movement or because of seasonal movement. But I think, Nick, if I'm interpreting your question a bit, it's a little bit of, I know that at St. George, they probably get all sorts of ideas of how we do it in X, Y, and Z city or parish. So, but we'll come back to that so we can make sure we get through the content. But I do like that question, Nick. So we'll, time permitting, come back.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say, part of what we're talking about here, having the plan and, the clear definition and the goals and the priorities can help with that, right? To help keep things focused, because we all, I think, experience that so many wonderful ideas at our parish, but you can only do so much with so many resources. And so staying focused. So I'm going to share with you today is a 6-phase approach that we take to strategic planning. Steve has already touched a little bit on the begin stage, if you will. So just kind of, how are we setting things up and ensuring that this is the right thing for the parish in terms of moving forward with the strategic plan. There is an assessment phase. Where are we today? Envision, where do we need to be? Where are we going? The plan itself, and then the implementation of the plan, right? I think we've all, either in our own personal lives or in a parish life, had a plan, made a list, really pretty, set it off to the side, and it doesn't get done. So what's that follow through to make sure that the investment that we put into creating the plan, that we're also doing well with the implementation and seeing the goals and the objectives come to fruition. So with the begin stage, again, Steve talked about the rationale aspect, but I'd like to focus on as well as the team that we put together. So we're moving forward with a commitment to create a strategic plan for the parish. There are different levels of the team that create the strategic planning team. At kind of the higher oversight level, you'll have the strategic leadership. So this is the priest. We select a chair, perhaps co-chairs, and the PC president. This is a smaller group, again, kind of oversight and providing guidance throughout. Then from this stage, we move into our strategic planning team. This is a 10 to 15 person team, so a little bit of a larger team. They work on the analysis or the assessment phase that we'll talk about, giving direction and guiding overall guidance of the plan. And then we will move into the plan itself and building out solutions and actions. At that stage, we create vision teams. So through the process, you will see we do focus in on core strategic objectives, and then each strategic objective will have a team built around that. So you can see many people involved in the strategic planning process. So Steve talked about the process is as valuable as the end product of the book itself, or that clear articulation of the goals and the objectives, and getting many people involved to be a part of the process. It helps with parish unity. It helps with the buy-in of the plan and realizing the goals and objectives that are created. Parish council plays a role in that they are approving and deciding along with the General Assembly that yes, we are committed to this, but it's really the strategic planning team that's empowered to create the plan, and ultimately it'll be approved by the parish assembly. So the parish council, you may, we often see members of the parish council involved in these different teams that we're talking about, but this isn't a parish council plan. This is a parish plan led by the strategic planning team members. Let's move on to the next slide, a little bit more about getting started. So that 4-person strategic planning leadership team that I talked about, the priest, the chairs, the PC president, they really work on developing the scope, the rationale, and forming the approach for moving forward. Again, we talked about the parish council, along with the General Assembly, provide the commitment and they approve the direction to go forward with the plan, empowering the strategic planning team. And then
metropolis.
And then we have the strategic planning team form.
The metropolis.
10 to 15, 12 to 20. I mean, 20 is a little bit on the high end. We have seen 20 work. Probably in that 10 to 15 range has been most effective. From there, the team will go through an orientation and we will launch into the next phases of the approach, which I will share with you in just a minute, which does include parish assessments. So we've talked about the begin, now we're moving into the assessment phase. So there are many processes and approaches that we take with the strategic planning team. Again, this is that 10 to 15, 20 person team that works together to see where the parish is at today. And this is unique for every parish, of course. Many tools that we use here. We take a look at parish culture. We do, I'll talk about a little bit more. We do recommend parish surveys. We look at parish registries. So we look at statistics in terms of baptisms, wedding, catechumens, converts, things of that nature. We look at finances. We do a strength, a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities. I'm going to challenge myself on the T, threats. Thank you. This is something that we would work with the team as well. We look at stewardship, how that is progressing for your parish. We take a look at orthodoxy in America and the trends that we are seeing across parishes in the United States. We look at the parish health. We look at operational effectiveness. So again, a lot of methods and tools that we use to support this evaluation: church attendance, priority, parish life cycle, where a parish is at in their life cycle. This is a little bit smaller of a graphic here, but we know parishes have a tendency to increase and then maybe plateau a little bit, increase again. So we assess where your particular parish is. And all of that plays into formulating priorities for the parish and then moving into the next phase. Before we do that, again, we talk about participation. You heard Steve talk about it. I'll talk about it a lot. Getting people involved throughout the whole process, not just having a plan that's created in a small room on a weekend, but that whole process together, having people's fingerprints on it. You'll hear us say a lot, the more fingerprints on the plan, the more people are bought into it. This helps with the change management and the actual implementation of the plan. And we do recommend surveys. So it's common, people ask about this a lot. There is a standard survey that we use and can tailor it for the parish if there's something specific, topical that the parish that we want to solicit parish input on. Surveys are great because they expand the insight beyond just the 15 to 20 person team we're talking about. Again, we talked about buy-in. You may learn something we didn't anticipate, right? These things come up in surveys as well. So that is definitely a step within the process. And this is just a template that shows kind of a culmination. So this is more like a scorecard, a report card, if you will. that these are all the different areas that I've talked about in different ways. So we do our assessments, and then we do a red, yellow, green indicator, just so we have a visual snapshot of where the parish is at, and can help focus in on key priority areas to consider in the plan. Then we move on to envision. We've talked about the why. Steve mentioned the importance of the why. We've had a whole webinar just on the why, the parish why. So we know this is critical in all of our parishes, and especially when we're talking about strategic planning. So mission, vision, values is another way, you know, that you've heard it stated before. So the fundamental what we do, why we are who we are as a parish, where we are headed, you know, what are we aspiring to be, and our core values. So during this phase of the project, for those of the approach, for those parishes that already have well-defined mission, vision, and value statements, we would reaffirm them, adjust if necessary. For those maybe who haven't done the work to write them down in a concise way, we would work together with the parish to assist with that. Vision casting, Steve mentioned before, a couple schools of thought on this, right? The priest, as you can see here, the vision caster is one approach. Another approach is putting together a smaller team within the parish to come up with the vision, and working together with the parish priest to, again, articulate mission, vision, and values. Both work well. A lot of it depends on the personality of the parish, so we would work to support whatever was best for the parish in this regard. And then just a statement, and I think for those of you who were able to attend the why presentation webinar that was done a few months ago, you know, the trend in mission statements, mission, vision, and value, I think we all have experienced either in our professional or parish life, a really nice like 3-sentence, or maybe it's 1-sentence mission statement, but it's got 30 words in it, right? So the trend is definitely moving towards these slogan-based mission statements that are memorable. People can articulate them very easily. The importance of a mission, vision, value, these statements is that they're well understood and well communicated within the parish. So again, slogan-based is kind of maybe a weird way to say it in a parish environment, but when we can have our whole parish be able to articulate very clearly what our mission statement is, we are better off overall as a parish, and of course in our strategic planning efforts. Then we move into the planning phase. So we talked about the parish and the strategic leadership group, the 4 who's providing oversight throughout, and then the strategic planning team, the 15 to 20. The culmination of their work, the core of their work, is to identify strategic objectives. So they will work on that. And then at this point, as I'm starting to talk about the planning phase, this is where we transition into the vision teams that I talked about. So again, here's an example of strategic planning areas. The framework of the plan, the strategic planning team sets the strategic objectives. So in this example, there are 5. 4 to 6 is what's recommended. So you do have to remember that for every strategic objective, the plan will build out to have 2 to 3, maybe 4 goals, and then 3 to 4 to 5 actions beyond that. So it multiplies, and we have to think about the totality of what a parish can take on. So again, here are a few examples: faith formation, leadership. There are a lot of different strategic areas that a parish will come up with. Each of these areas, again, will have a vision team built out to support it and move into defining the goals and objectives. And when we move into that phase, again, vision teams will be formed. So there will be one vision team lead separate from the strategic planning team. And then they will form a team to focus on a specific strategic objective. We do see members of the strategic planning team can become vision team leads as well. So there may be some overlap, but again, getting more and more people involved is key to success. There is a template that is followed, so it's not like here's your objective and everybody kind of goes off, into their corners and comes back with, whatever format, or something maybe off base. So there is a template that helps keep everything organized and gives guidance to the to the vision team leads, recognizing that many vision team leads maybe haven't done something like this before. So each vision team will create their own plan, and this is where the meat of the plan. So we had the framework built by the strategic planning team. The vision team puts the meat, if you will, onto the plan. So in this, we're saying 5 to 10 members, about 8 on average is what's recommended. Again, templated approach. So each team, they will take their strategic objective, they'll come up with a guiding scripture for their team. They will identify key questions that they're working to answer, confirm their strategic objectives. Sometimes they wordsmith it a little bit or change it a little bit, again, kind of in that transition from the strategic planning team to the vision team, which is fine. And then they identify 2 to 4 goals and actions to meet those goals. And you can see the framework of the template here. And this is a completed template for a vision team. I know it's small, but wanted to be able, I see you getting your glasses, wanted to be able to, again, share that there is a template, what it looks like when it's done. Every vision team will produce their plan in this same format. So when it goes to that book that Steve was talking about, these all fit together nice and consistently for your parish. And it's clear that, again, this particular example has 6 goals. Within goal 1, this is a very large example. They have many goals here. We might not recommend this many, but it really just depends on what the goal is in the situation at the parish. And you can see a key action. Every key action needs to have a measure and a target timeline, right? And this is important in the implementation phase to hold the parish accountable and the teams accountable to the plan that they're putting together in a clear way to measure that progress is being made. So I'll leave that up there for a minute. And then finally, the implementation planning. So again, it's really, I'm going to go back and say that strategic leadership team is providing oversight throughout the entire plan. The strategic planning team is really the team that's doing the work on the assessment, ensuring the mission and vision and values are clearly articulated, developing the strategic objectives for the plan. And then it's when we get into this goals and actions that we transition to the vision teams, one vision team for each strategic objective. See here, I didn't talk about program costs, but there is a step in the process after the goals are created where high-level costs are estimated and reported to the parish council for consideration into the annual budget process, right? Because a lot of times, a lot of our goals or the actions we want to achieve will take financial support to achieve those. So that's a step in the process as well. And then moving into the implementation phase. This pretty graphic is a journey of everything I've just talked about. Creating the team, all of the inputs, mission, vision, and values, creating your key objectives, the plan. The plan is presented back to the parish assembly for approval. So there's a step at the parish council level for review, but it's ultimately the parish assembly that has, is taking the vote, if you will, and approving this plan. The empowerment of the plan is with the strategic planning team that the parish council and the parish assembly approved up front, the process. And then at the end, the plan is reviewed and the parish assembly takes a vote to approve and move forward with the plan. High success rate. Again, if we're following the process and getting everyone involved, we have seen high success rate with the approvals at the end. Almost entirely unanimous. I think we've had a few exceptions where there have been, 1 or 2 folks who haven't been so sure. But I think considering all the work that's done here, that again, that's the process playing out, right? The process is to keep people involved in the plan and be aware of it So it's not a surprise at the end when it comes to approval. Implementation is key. Again, we all make pretty lists. We've all had great ideas. When they get put on a shelf and they don't get used, we're losing the value of the time we've invested and the benefit for the parish. So creating the plan is important. Implementing is more important, I would say. So there are key things that we work with to ensure that parishes are set up well to implement. A lot of it starts with those measures and the target dates. They are tracked and reported on. Some of the goals are going to migrate into your ministries. Every General Assembly, the expectation is that the strategic plan should be a line item at the General Assembly meeting with reporting on, what we've been able to achieve within the plan. If things have shifted a bit, the accountability to why and what the corrective action is, and annually tune up the plan as well. And I would say that what we're seeing with parishes is they're going through their plan, looking out 3 to 5 years, and then creating new plans after that as well, right? So continually tuning up through the duration of their plan and then creating new plans when their current one has expired. And I'm going to stop there. Questions kind of took you again through all the 6 phases of our approach. I know, like I've done a lot of talking. I'm like Steve, my voice is a little hoarse too. So I see if there's any questions that popped up.
There are plenty of questions, so grab a drink of water if you
Okay.
can, or a lozenge for Steve. But lots of good questions have been kind of brewing, and I think we'll have a really nice discussion here. So
Okay.
thank you for that presentation. A great amount of information. We'll get into some of the specific questions. If I could, summarize a couple of the earlier ones that came in. Wow, this is fantastic. Great process. As you get it going, but, in some parishes, the issue is how do you overcome the inertia, whether the inertia is coming from a sense of apathy or a sense of we've done that, we're fine as is. So a little bit of, almost how do you get the boulder rolling, right? Get it started to then run into this process and kind of overcome a bit of that inertia.
I can take a shot at that, or Dave, you want to do it?
No, I'll let you take that one.
So the entire strategic plan has been derived off a base of change management. That's what I did for many years professionally. So if you look at many of the steps along the way and the way that they're delivered, there are very sound kind of change management principles that guide the effort. So that would be getting as many fingerprints as possible, a lot of active communication, getting many of the kind of the right people on the teams. And what I mean by that is that the teams that are formed are hand selected. They're not anybody who wants to join can join, because in everything that you've seen tonight, there are tools and processes and guides for that. So those range anywhere from when the vision teams are formed, there's some selection criteria on who the vision team leaders should look to have joined the team. There's orientation process for all the vision team leaders. There's a selection guide for the strategic planning team on how to select vision team leads. So, first we look at someone that's active in the worship of the church, that you want somebody there that's actively there every Sunday, and then involved in parish life, et cetera, et cetera. There's other criteria. I don't need to go through them all right now. So there are a lot of materials that, because of time, we can't show right now. And so the way that you create it is that, again, through this transparency, through constant communication, and it'll create its own momentum. The biggest challenge that we have, frankly, I've never run into that problem at all at any of the parishes I've worked with. And I've worked with parishes large and small, is that calendars get in the way. The question comes up many times, how long does this take, the whole process? Well, the process from a calendar perspective, from a from a time perspective, takes about 5 to 6 months. But from an Orthodox calendar perspective, it takes 11 months. And why do I say that? Well, you don't want to do anything, obviously, some parishes don't want to do anything during Lent. Some parishes, just working on one right now, essentially all the parishioners leave from mid-July to mid-August. They lose that. If you have a festival, that's about 4 or 5 or 6 weeks you lose right there. Christmas. So you get these periods where you kind of just go dark. So you have to be working on things in the background. And that just elongates the calendar. But it can go as fast as possible. So you want to keep the momentum going. So in those down periods, you're increasing the communication. You always have something going on in the background to show progress. So yeah, that's how you do it. You basically do that. There was one question I saw here about.
Hang on, Steve. I'm going to stop there. I want because we had a couple questions like this, so I'm going to put a little.
Oh, okay, you combine them. Okay, got it.
A little finer. I'm going to put you a little finer point on this because, both of us being consultants, I heard some of the consulting-ese there a bit, but not the process. Let's imagine. Let's do a hypothetical. Let's imagine. There's some, well, Demi in many respects also, but, enthusiastic, maybe new to a parish, realizes the value of a strategic plan, brings it to the community, and all of a sudden you just hit this wave of inertia. We've always done it. The community's fine. Why would we want to we don't have any weaknesses. Why would we look at a SWOT analysis or things like that? So, to help, is it, and again, there's no single answer. Is it a proistamenos? Is it a small cadre of very, again, Christ-centered, committed individuals with the right talents to get it? I think, again, we had a couple questions like, how do you get to get into this process if the parish itself is just, resisting, right? The idea, we don't need a strategic plan. We're fine, right? Everything's good. So have you seen, and I know you've worked with some really some challenging parishes, how have you gotten them to see the value of a strategic plan and overcoming that? We don't need to do that.
Do we take it, Amy, or do you want to?
You could start. I've got some ideas, but I'll let you start. Yeah.
So again, there's a process that I follow, and usually the initial contact to show an inquiry on the strategic plan, again, comes from either the priest, but more often it comes from somebody that the priest has been speaking with, parish council president, or a parishioner that has an interest in this area. And we'll do an initial contact and go through some of those questions. But I always have a specific one-on-one call with the priest, because I never go out to a parish unless I have the blessings of the priest to do so. And so we talk about what his vision is, what he wants to accomplish. And I'll be honest with you, in some cases, we've decided that the timing wasn't right. And one of the things that usually prevents the timing is I'll ask a question: does the parish have any history in planning? Does the parish have a history of meeting deadlines and holding itself accountable? And if the parish, if it says no, we're terrible at that, we're terrible at executing plans, then I usually recommend an interim step, going to that revitalization or a shorter plan, or actually helping them put together an annual plan, because you need to kind of get some confidence in doing that. But in terms of heavy resistance, I've never encountered that. As Amy said, the goal on the General Assembly vote is 100%. I'm looking for unanimous. And again, if we're doing all these things and we're getting a lot of people involved, I've only had a non-unanimous vote one time in a parish, and there was only 2 people who are kind of the parish naysayers in general, and I was already warned on that. But so that's our goal. Our goal is to do it, and the parish survey factors into that greatly, because people feel that they have a voice. Every comment is read, every comment is categorized, and the results for the multiple choice questions are released. We don't release all the comments; it's just too difficult. But they're released, they're shared with the parish, they're posted on the website, And so the parish can have those dialogues. Always also recommend that there's parish-wide meetings that go on during this time as well, so they can talk. So once you create this momentum, there's never been an issue.
Yep.
Right. And I would just add, leadership, and we didn't get into it here. There's only so much you can cover, but that selection of who is on the different teams is important too. And creating teams that represent different demographics within the parish as well. Excuse me. I think, and then there is, Steve has alluded to, behind all this very planned, almost scripted communications go out, right? A very detailed communication plan to keep the momentum. And as Steve said, church meetings and the awareness throughout to keep the momentum going. Sorry. Ooh.
Great. Bill, you've had your hand up patiently, and I know you've got a comment in here too. So Bill, I don't know if you wanted to either speak or, ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so I have a lot written down here, but I'm just going to stick to one thing so I don't take up monopolize anything. But yeah, the implementation is definitely the key. And thanks for your note on implementation, how important that is. And just like the basketball player, you have the team playing, and then the guys all get it. The 3 or 4 people come up to tip it up into the basket, and there's one guy that dunks it in. Well, the ball happens to be there, and I think with the implementation plan, the ball has to really be next to that basket to really be able to implement effectively. And you wrote the activity and the date being important, which is great to guide implementation, but also I was going to suggest, and only because I took a cue from Steve and the czar, Bill Marianis, and the Metropolis Strategic Plan 2014, where they also had the WHO in the Pacific team who's going to take the action, and also how the success is going to be measured. So these were included elements in the Metropolis Plan, as I said, but we have to know how to measure success and the action that was implemented by the plan date for immediate feedback loop follow-up. And one of the things that was cool about that is that because there was start dates involved, when the participants came and were talking about the plan, when the plan was being implemented, they said, well, we already started, because they didn't want to be late. So it encouraged the people to start right away because their date was coming up, and they had to report on that at the first big meeting at the clergy laity. And then also the completion date, so the successor action can be appropriately engaged. So I think it's critical to have the plan include those implementation timelines, and people are and the who, and that way it's kind of through that relationship of transparency, people are holding themselves accountable to implement and make it happen. I've seen churches where they didn't implement because there wasn't really a plan to implement. And the people who did an extraordinary job putting together the plan for their vision task said, hey, I was never asked to do the implementation part. And then they had to kind of regroup and get the energy going again. So it's good to have that. So appreciate you mentioning that implementation piece.
Yeah, and there were other comments too, again, whether races or things like that. And one of the things that I know, Demi, when you showed the goals, and I know Steve's talked about this a lot too, but kind of testing out the goals, are they in fact SMART goals, right? Are they, and if you want to touch on that, because that really helps lead to kind of concrete implementation planning too, right? What is it that we're trying to get done?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, the measure and the timing, all part of that discussion and refinement that comes with it, and ensuring one of the things that is focused on as well is SMART, right? If it can't be measured, then we need to be looking back at the goal, also making sure that everything is written in a way that somebody who wasn't directly involved in it and intimately involved can pick up the plan and the goals and the measures and understand it just by reading it, right? So working with the teams in that way as well to ensure that the goal and the measure reads to the new user, not just the intimate, vision team members who were involved in all the discussion as well. And I think that helps too. We all know in our parishes, we see change, right? So who we think is going to carry it forward. Maybe they move away, something happens, and we have to hand it off to somebody else, so that that's an easy transition, so that the parish can again see the realization of the goals and objectives that were put forward, and it not dependent on that single person, right, or that single team that created the original goal and plan around it.
Great. I think we covered most questions, but
Um,
Steve, we still have leadership development also, correct? So
Yeah.
we want to be able to.
Steve, I'm going to keep my hand up here. Bonus
Bill.
question.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was just left up. Okay, it's still live. Go ahead.
Okay. But bonus question is, so I noticed when I was at a clergy laity, and thank God we were able to host that, and it was a huge success. The National Clergy Laity, extraordinary. There were so many things that happened there that when I had, as a delegate, I had to take a report back to the parish, St. D's. I thought, well, why am I not crafting the report to take back to the vision team leaders so then they can put it in their hopper and also not only have awareness to access ministries that are now available, like the Interparish Association. Hey, if a city wants to engage and reach up to the Assembly of Orthodox Bishops, or just alignment of objectives. What are the objectives stated? And also, I was thinking, well, why not the metropolis as well? So I know that there's a strategic plan cycle, 3 to 5 years, but what if they're taking all these things into the hopper from the metropolis strategic plan, from the archdiocese clergy laities, as well as the plans, and then making sure that there's an alignment of objectives. And so we're all one church in that sense. And not to say it has to happen, but you have a lot of best practices that it makes it a lot easier to roll the wheel and build the wheel and roll the wheel than just starting from some just go do it thing.
Yeah, well, Bill, one of the things we do is, and I agree with you, when we do strategic plans, one of the things that is shared with the vision teams are all the respective plans from other parishes that have done youth programs or stewardship or leadership development or whatever the case might be. And that's where we're going with all this. The challenge behind it is that every parish has a little different context, a little different nuance to it. So while we're sharing some of these plans from other parishes, which I totally appreciate, they have ownership, and so they kind of create their own. But it kind of jumpstarts them a little bit. So we are categorizing right now, through our efforts for the OPL, categorizing all the different plans that are out there. So even if a parish doesn't want to do a strategic plan, but they're interested in a youth program or a stewardship program or whatever the case might be, they will have access to just those plans that can possibly be used in the parish. And so, yeah, I get it. It flows perfectly. But the reality is that all the parishes have little different nuances. Like Father Ted, he's got a really unique nuance, is that he's 2 different parishes for a different parish for every 6 months. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I would like to address one point. There's a lot of comments, and sorry, Steve, I know but on the RACES and accountabilities, that sort of thing. So as you know, I don't know if you can see it in the example, but every goal has a measure. There are dates, but there's no names. And the reason we do that is the vision teams are asked to look at the implementation. Some vision team leads are not able to stay on for the entire implementation, but there is an identified person that's going to be overseeing the implementation for that vision team. And 9 times out of 10, it's the vision team lead. However, remember, this plan is a plan of the General Assembly. And there was a lot of concern about putting a name in there. And you're right, you should have a name in there. There's a lot of concern about putting a name in the plan book where this plan book is getting approved by the General Assembly. And what that means is any changes in the plan book need to go to the General Assembly because that's who it's reporting to. So from that standpoint, those names and the plan is identified on an annual basis. There is an individual that is identified in the parish as the overall implementation coordinator. Doesn't mean they have responsibility to actually implement every element, but they have a responsibility to report on the progress. So every General Assembly, from the time the plan is approved till the end of that plan, whatever it is, 3 years, 4 years, whatever the case might be, the parish leadership has agreed that that will be a standing item on all future General Assemblies, which will be an accounting of the progress of the strategic plan. And we create materials for those for the coordinator. We create a quick reference guide showing all the goals, all the dates, and everything. So, yes, that is very much a part of the plan, but we don't put it in the plan because having someone commit to an activity 2 years down the road, we've was found that it would be unrealistic. So there is a mechanism for that as well. Yeah.
Steve, I think you're Steve Pappas on mute.
Thank you. Yes, I was. Thanks, Demi. Steve, we got about 10 minutes of the allotted time as far as leadership development. I know we've got some other points and questions out there, but we can keep them going in the chat. But did we want to get into leadership development?
Well, honestly, Steve, let's hear from what
Questions?
everybody wants. Let me give you a thumbnail on leadership development. And we can do a real quick, a pinky nail thumbnail sketch in about 10 minutes. Or we can just continue talking about strategic plans. What would you prefer? Because if some came on just for leadership development, I want to shortcut that as well.
Yeah, so feel free in the chat, or you can come off of mute and share your comments. But is everyone good keeping this momentum going for the strategic planning, and then we can table leadership development and save it for a future session? Because that is a very rich topic. We think about leadership development, succession planning. How do we create, foster, and motivate the leaders of our respective parishes? So any particular I guess that we'll just ask that more simple question of, has anyone come just for leadership development will feel disappointed this evening if they don't hear the topic? And we can take.
But I will take very personally if anybody raises their hand and says that. So, but
no, you can raise your hand.
See, why don't we do this? There's some new information through the 2x2 program that I think people would like to see. And that's kind of embedded in the leadership. So why don't I at least share that, and then we can see if there's any dialogue beyond that.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, just kind of do a quick preview, and we can dive back.
So it'd be a quick compression. So okay. So Demi, you're closed, right?
Yeah, Demi.
I'm no longer sharing.
Okay.
And then Father Ted, not ignoring your points, absolutely. I think about what plans are given, kind of up to the metropolis, and it's kind of interesting. Do we cascade down from archdiocese to metropolis to parishes, or sort of in the history of our churches, it's somewhat brewing at the parishes, but how do we bring it together to maybe coordinate, think about best practices, and maybe the metropolis is the place for that. I think really use the word synergy at the very beginning, but across our parishes. So Steve.
Yeah, just one comment on that. I did notice it caught some interest. So on the strategic plan book, you're not solving anything in the booklet, but you are calling out milestones to be accomplished. So let's say a parish wants to do some additional iconography. So that's identified in the plan that by this date, we will have a plan. By this date, we'll have cost estimates. By this date, there will also be an action item saying by this date, the plan will be approved by the Arts and Architecture Committee. And so you have a team working on that will be doing that. In some cases, the relocation of a property, same thing, has to go to the real estate committee. So it's very important to remember that when these teams are being formed for the strategic plan, they are calling out all the steps that are necessary. And then during the implementation, those steps are actually completed. But that's why it's important to identify all the different steps. So yes, if there's something coming in from the archdiocese or the metropolis where things need to go to follow protocol for the archdiocese or the metropolis, those are definitely in the plan and should be targeted. absolutely, yeah. Okay, so let's run through this very quickly. Okay.
I don't see it yet. But
Yeah, I'm not sharing it. Let me just get the slide here. Let me catch up. Okay. All right. I think I just lost my 6 minutes. So
you got 4, 3.
I got 4 now. Okay. So leadership development. As I mentioned, this comes up quite a bit within the context of, emerging leaders, succession planning, how do we do it, all these sort of things. But also it comes up with an existing parish council or existing ministries, how can we equip them to take their ministry and the parish to, if you will, the next level, whatever that level that might be. And that's defined. So there are really 3 elements I was going to talk about. Defining, before you talk about leadership development, you have to define what leadership is, and then you have to look at the attributes of that, and then development considerations. So, frankly, because of the time, I'm going to skim the first 2 elements, which is the definition and the attributes. I'm going to go to some slides that I think you might find the most interesting. So, but by definition, it's a ministry of the church shared by all who are in Christ. Most importantly, it's not limited to a special professional class, nor solely the priest. And leaders are throughout the parish, formal and informal. In my mind, a Sunday school teacher is a leader because they are representing Christ and his church to his or her students. An usher is a leader because they are representing the parish to visitors and keeping order. Obviously, parish council is a more formal network. Ministry leaders are a little bit more formalized network. But all of these are leaders in the parish, and it has to be understood that they all have a role in this process. They're encouraged to create followership. Leader without followers is just out taking a walk. There are some ministries that are kind of led and developed and run by one person. Those are anomalies, but they do exist. But it's a team sport. It also embodies the values of the parish, and although we do all those individuals I just mentioned, they have to represent the values of the parish and the church, and they have to witness to the church. From time to time, I'm asked to go in and work with troubled parishes. His Eminence asked me to go in and provide support. And I can tell you the first thing that I see in these troubled parishes is the leaders are not living the values of the church. They don't attend liturgy, they're not active in worship, and you can see it in their behaviors. So we were not merely called to lead the parish in our respective areas, but ultimately every leader in the parish is called to bring people closer to Christ. And they're called to help foster a connection to his church. That's what we're called to do. We just happen to do it through our different ministries and the different things that we do. But ultimately, everybody in the parish, this gets to the why, needs to focus in, and especially our leaders. It's like working with a company and the leader doesn't represent the company. Well, that's not going to work. So that's my last company analogy I'll do with this, by the way. Obviously, we have harmonized leadership. The priest is the head of the parish. Make no mistake about it. If I'm in a troubled parish, that simple statement is not accepted. And so we have to kind of sort that out. But to serve on the parish council is a ministry, and all those who serve are called to represent Christ in the Orthodox faith. They're all whom they meet in all aspects of life. And this isn't just parish council, this is every ministry leader. So we work in conjunction. In fact, when I worked as parish council president 14 times at St. Paul's, had a wonderful working relationship with Father Stephen Seclese. And when I first became president, he and I sat down and we kind of sorted out. I'd never been a parish council president before, so I'm kind of sorting it all out. And basically, the way we would find it was, Christ is our CEO, Father Steve's the president, and I was the COO. We all needed to be congruent, and that has actually worked out very well. Leaders need to embrace the why. They also need to embrace the health. They need to understand what a healthy parish is. They need to be able to see what a healthy parish or a healthy ministry is, and be able to work on that, improve it, and then understand what a healthy, effective leader in a church context is. Okay, checking the clock here real fast. So that's kind of the context. Let me run to some other elements. And you're all going to get these slides so you can look through them. Just case in point here, I had the opportunity to survey 40 clergy and parish council presidents of our metropolis and ask them the question, what is an effective leader in our parish? This is the list that they came up with. I'm not going to go through the list to save time, but you can see it's a very effective list with scriptural references. I took this list then and created this model, which is basically looking at 3 key dimensions. First and foremost, the base of the pyramid is Christian commitment. If we don't have that, we're running thin. The next area is servant leadership. And I could go longer on servant leadership, but the reality is that it's the mindset that a leader isn't there to be served. A leader is there to serve. And not from a weakness, but from a strength. And then ultimately, the leaders, ministry leaders, whatever, they need to get some results. They need to do something. Your treasurer needs to create an accurate report. There needs to be, effective stewardship programs, and stewardship not just by money collecting, but stewardship from creating a culture of generosity in all aspects of giving in the parish. It's a very multidimensional role. As a leader, you have yourself. You should ask the questions, how do I prepare myself to be a positive role model, an effective member of my ministry as the leader? The ministry team itself needs to you need to figure out how do you interact with your ministry? How do you lead your ministry? And then how do I connect this ministry to the entire parish? Are we an island or are we connected to the body? Remember, we're all one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I do not need you. We are all important. So we have to figure out how to connect ourselves. Looking at development consideration, again, I apologize for the speed on this thing. But if you look at, there are 7 steps in creating a leadership development plan for the parish or for the metropolis or whatever the case might be. And I'm going to take these in 3 bunches, but I want to show you a focus on number 3 here very quickly. So let me go to 3. Well, basically, in preparation, you have to support the why. So there's a pilot program that we're running in the metropolis now called the 2x2 program. And that's 12 parishes in our metropolis. And we're doing development with 2 representatives from each parish. And every month, we do a development program, much like this, for that. I'm not calling it a cohort, but it's not really a full cohort, but it's a small group. And they are trained, if you will, to an awareness level on all the topics I talked about that are part of OPL: ministry effectiveness, capital campaigns, stewardship generosity, the parish why, parish health, that sort of thing. So every month we have this, and then they have a homework assignment inside of their parish. Recently, we've done some of these where one of the homework assignments, because we're testing out some assessment instruments every month, and if some of you are in those parishes, you may have taken some of these. In July, we asked these 12 parishes to go out and do a survey and ask their parish, what are your needs over the next 18 months? And they came out, highest rated item, over 200 responses out of 12 parishes, leadership development. Far and away, the number 1 need in the parishes for 18 months. And this is brand new information, just to let you know. In fact, His Eminence hasn't even seen this information. The next one, in August, we did a parish health check. There's 12 attributes of a healthy parish. They took that. What was the lowest rated item on that? We continually develop great leaders. So, trend, validation. 1 month we say this is what we need. Next month we say we do a terrible job at it. And that makes complete sense. So what I'm looking at is this optimal convergence of perspective again, combined, there were over 200 participants in each one of these surveys. These 12 parishes, I've actually worked at all 12 of these personally through all the different activities. So I know them, and they're ranged cathedrals to small parishes, and they're ranged into, I think, 5 different states. This month, we also did another one on leadership development. And we asked the question, do you have a sufficient number of leaders in your parish? We actually had 26 participants on this one. 2 said yes, 24 said, well, okay, or no, actually, no was the leading response. Do you conduct annual development? 20 out of the 26 said, no, we don't. Who should participate in leadership development programs? Everybody, parish council, ministry leaders, clergy, everyone. And I have more details behind this, but this is the summary level. And then what's your preferred modality? How should we deliver this? Saturday seminars is the #1 rated. Saturday seminars just with the parish, followed by Saturday seminars on a regional basis. And then also micro topics that could be reviewed at a ministry meeting or a parish council meeting. And this one thing I want to look at. So we did a bit of a needs analysis as well in that same survey. And we said, okay, out of these 21 topic areas, what do you see as most important? It's kind of a derivative off of the other one I did in 18 months, but a little more depth. And basically, becoming a servant leader, embracing the attributes of a Christian leader, and leading change were the top 3 rated. Now, I was a little surprised by the leading change, but certainly they're saying we want to know how to be better leaders. So now we need to figure out what to do with all this, right? So the trend is there, the need is there. And if we look at the shortage, we also through the OPL did some studying on, are we unique? Well, the reality is across churches throughout America, everyone's short on leaders. That's a constant concern. Our parishes are, relatively small compared to some of the mega churches out there, but we're not small. Right? An average church is about 40 to 50 parishioners on a Sunday. Not Orthodox, it's just general Christian churches. But looking at shortages of leaders, why is that? Well, there's no pathway. There's no system in the parish to kind of get people more engaged. There's no call. Churches aren't saying we need you. And it's not out of desperation. They do it. There's ways to do that. But people just don't realize that there's a shortage. It's not atypical for me to work with a parish. I'll say, what's the size of your parish council? They'll say, well, 12, but we only have 9 seats filled. And so, well, we have 12 and we're doing an election this November for 6 seats because we alternate half of them and we'll probably have 6 candidates. So it's not really an election. So the pool to draw from is very small. They're not offering anything of interest that would attract somebody, or they're not communicating in a way that they're creating this, like St. Nicholas. I mean, it's beautiful what you're doing there. You're creating this interest, you're creating this common bond, if you will, and that will generate leadership. And then there's this worker bee culture that if I'm the leader, I just have to do more stuff. And that's not the case. St. John Chrysostom says, the fundamental responsibility of leadership is to discern the skills of those around you, to get them involved. That's what the leader does. So as you can see, the timing is right for these sort of things. And so putting together a plan is vital in the parish. And then again, just one last point, then we'll wrap up. So if you look at attributes, the attribute is who the person is, right? It's, are they friendly? Do they have empathy? It's who they are. Competencies and skills are the skills, the talents, the knowledge that somebody brings to perform a job, to fulfill their ministry. So there's a model that I've used, and it's the 4 C's of leadership. And if you look at the top, it's character and conviction, and that's the personal level. And that has to do with their commitment to Christ and his church and the personal characteristics, those attributes of the individual. Below is the competency and the context. And there's that balance that has to occur within a parish. And I asked during that survey with the clergy in the metropolis of San Francisco, I asked the question, would you prefer to have someone on your parish council that is very a very committed Orthodox Christian, goes to church all the time? Or would you rather have somebody that has tremendous business skills, but is only marginally an Orthodox Christian? You can imagine what they said. They said the former. They would much rather have somebody that is committed to the church with marginal business skills than vice versa. But the church needs skills. All right. I've worked with some parishes that had a treasurer that really was pretty lost. So it is important to bring those skills forward. But if you look at the context, there's some training that needs to happen to make them aware of how their skills in finance or planning or management or leadership translates into the world of church. And so it's important that we do this. And by the way, competency skills are rarely ever developed in a church. It's just kind of an assumption that that's what the person brings with them. Occasionally, I'm starting to see more context setting about training in parish health and stewardship. That's kind of what we're testing. And the upper areas as well is really in faith formation programs, Bible studies, and those sort of things. So we're kind of nudging onto this model, but when we look at a leadership development program, we analyze these because you need to do needs assessment. So there are some tools that we use before I ever go out and do a leadership assessment. We do a needs analysis to determine what's most important to the parish, et cetera, et cetera. And that basically, that was the run through development approaches. There's a number of them. They range from workshops to mentoring, one-on-one mentoring, assigning, if you will, an up-and-comer to an established leader in the parish. Succession planning. Succession planning is difficult. It's less difficult actually in our ministries, but it's difficult in parish councils because we have very strict guidelines about having to be reelected and those sort of things. So there's some uncertainty about who's going to be on the parish council next year. Content delivery, pushing it through webinars, that sort of thing.
Steve, sorry to interrupt.
Yep,
Sorry.
and that's it.
Okay, because I think this is an incredibly important topic, and I know about succession planning, and I'll propose something because I'm sure we're leaving everyone hungry for more and dialogue and discussion. So you and I can chat, but maybe in January we come back and, early in the year, leadership development, new parish councils are, getting into their positions, and we can, present this again, but go deeper and get into the Q&A if that works for you. Some of the comments in the chat definitely, showed a great deal of interest here. So we'll figure out how we maybe do maybe we have a full Q&A session, one of these webinars, and come in with a few particular topics and get the dialogue going. Good. Well, I know if we are able to wrap now, we have the privilege and pleasure of having Metropolitan Tarasios actually provide us a closing prayer. Father Ted, thank you for being here as always. We'll get you a pass tonight, but just wanted to mention November 18th is our next OPL webinar that we have planned. Again, two very rich topics. We'll have the 5P ministry effectiveness approach, where Peter Pendels will talk about that, and then George Akisian, who's on, will talk about welcoming committee. And ever since George presented, it was over a year ago, George, I think we had you, but ever since then, your docket has been full of parishes interested in welcoming committees, and we even saw it on Demi's strategic plan.
Certainly has, Steve.
With that, if there's any comments, we've got some emails. We'll send out at least immediately some of the strategic plan guides out to those, and then of course we'll post it up on the Metropolis too.
Yeah, Steve, if I can answer, there's one question. It's real simple. Somebody said, I can definitely share. There's a kind of a playbook, if you will, that people follow when we have troubled parishes. But if you read The Autopsy of a Deceased Church by Tom Rainer, that's a good starting point. And Tom was the speaker at our clergy lady. So Autopsy of a Deceased Church. And it's rather chilling, actually, when you see his 12 points.
I hope we can't relate to too many of them, but I fear we might in some cases. So, okay. Your Eminence, thank you for joining us this whole evening. I think, Steve, we also actually have a request about San Jose too from His Eminence in the chat, so we can follow up on that. But Your Eminence, if you would bless us this evening, provide a closing prayer.
Yes, how are you?
Wonderful. Great to see you.
How do I do this? You know, I'm so new at all of this.
I got you. No, you're good. We can hear you. We can see you.
Very good. Well, I'm sitting here with two members of our parish who came in for another reason, and I fished them into my net here. And we've been listening to this broadcast. It's wonderful. I've learned so much, and I'm not disappointed. I'm actually inspired. I hope that the Metropolis does more of these kinds of transmissions. I find them very helpful, and it creates a lot of dialogue for growth, hopefully, and not the autopsy of a parish, but the life and the renewed life in a parish. Having said all that, I bless each and every one of you in your ministries, in your fervor, that our Orthodox Church continue and grow and prosper to give glory to God, to you all individually, to our parishes and their families. May God bless each and every one of you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for joining. Again, we'll follow up on some of the emails and chats, and we'll be back on November 18th. Look for your emails from the Metropolis on the registration information on that. And I thank everyone for staying on longer this evening, and wish you all a wonderful fall as we get into the fall.